Okay. Hey, everybody. So this is a review of Donkey Kong Country Returns. This is a game for the Nintendo Wii that just came out recently. I believe it came out in December. And it's actually kind of a remake or a retro return to the game's roots. As you all know, Donkey Kong started with the Nintendo many, many years ago as a regular Nintendo game and an arcade game. Still played today. A universally loved game from the 80s. In the 1994, Nintendo took a step forward and brought Donkey Kong to the Super Nintendo with a game called Donkey Kong Country. And this made the game much more colorful. You know, it's like it takes place in a jungle, and it introduced Diddy and Donkey both playing at the same time. It introduced animal friends to the game, where you can ride on animals, and a lot of other really cool things were added to the game. This game is kind of a remake of the Super Nintendo version, so it goes back to its two-dimensional roots. As you can see, the game is actually in 3 dimensions. Like right now, I'm rotating the island around in 3D, and the levels are in 3D. However, when you actually get in to play the game, it's two-dimensional, or rather the perspective is a side-view, side-scroller platform game. So it kind of brings us back to the way the game is meant to be played. You'll see, I'm about to start a level here, you'll see that the graphics are obviously three-dimensional. There's several scrolling levels. There's stuff in the foreground, stuff in the background. There's all kinds of stuff going on. But look at the camera angle. You see the camera always stays to the side, so it plays like a two-dimensional platformer from the days of old. So I think that's really cool because this game really lends itself to that format, and that was what it was meant to be, how it was meant to be played, and I'm really glad they went back to it. I should say that Nintendo changed their thinking when the Nintendo 64 came out, and they basically made everything in 3 dimensions in the late 90s, including Donkey Kong. They did a deal with Rareware to create Donkey Kong 64, and there's nothing wrong with that game. It was a good game. I enjoyed it, but sometimes games really lend themselves to be played in a certain way, a certain perspective. And this one is like that. I think that Donkey Kong is always meant to be two-dimensional, and it'll always be best when presented in that way. So congrats to Nintendo and Retro Studios for bringing this back. Two-dimensional Donkey Kong game in the way it should be played on the Nintendo Wii. Very, 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 very good game. So in this game, they basically retold the original story. So the Kongs are in a situation where their bananas have been stolen again, and that's basically the story from the original. The Kremlings have stolen their bananas, and that's the entire premise of the game, and that's actually all you really need for a good platformer story. So basically you have to go through all the levels and recover all your bananas. You don't have to collect them individual bananas from each level, but the idea is you have to go find the bosses at the end of the levels, and they have a whole bunch of your bananas, and you have to get them back. Bananas can be actually used to gain extra lives. They can also be used to purchase items in the store. Cranky Kong, I believe, is Donkey Kong's grandfather, or Diddy Kong's grandfather, runs a store in each of the games, not only this game, but also Donkey Kong Country, and you can buy items and use them later in the game. You'll notice that I just went into a barrel that shot me into the background, and then I did a little number back there that got shot back to the foreground. So they do some three-dimensional stuff, but again, the perspective always stays two-dimensional, so the gameplay still works in the way it should. So this game's really good. I'm going to give it a very high score, but I will say I do have one complaint, and here's my complaint. I was a huge, huge fan of Donkey Kong Country, and one of the big reasons why is Diddy Kong. Diddy Kong is the smaller of the two monkeys, and he's actually on my back right now. I don't know if you can see that, but he's riding on my back. In the original Donkey Kong Country, you could switch to him, and he's a playable character. That was really, really well done on Nintendo's part because he's nimble, and he can jump higher, run faster, and he really works well as his own player. So you can basically switch back and forth between Donkey and Diddy at any time in the old game. In this game, it's not like that. He just rides on your back and doesn't really do much. He gives you more hit points, so you can take more hits if he's riding on your back, but he can't be played in the single-player mode. So what they did is I think he's playable in the multiplayer, which I actually haven't tried yet. But I'm more interested in the single-player campaign for this type of game because, frankly, the level design is really, really good. These guys know how to design levels. I'm speaking of Nintendo, of course. Very, very, really smart level design. They do it very well. They know how to use items properly. So, really good job there. Side note is Rare, the company that usually does the outsourcing, or rather the development for the Donkey Kong games, didn't work on this game. This is made by Retro Studios, and those of you might remember Retro. They did Metroid Prime for the GameCube, and I believe they did some of the sequels as well. So they know what they're doing. The Retro Studios people are very good programmers and designers, so they did a great job. I think it's very well. What's that? Is there a question? Okay, gotcha. So that's about all I can say for this game. It's a really, really well-designed game. Oops, and I just died. That's perfect timing. It's a lot of fun, and I highly recommend it. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Donkey Kong Country Returns for the Nintendo Wii. Highly recommended. Gotcha. All right.
Thanks for watching, Joseph.
Anyway, thank you for watching the review. This was Donkey Kong Country. Thank you. How was that?